Hello. Today is Friday, June 26, 2026. I'm Cindy Allen, CEO of TradeForce Multiplier, which is a global trade consultancy service that handles everything from high-level board strategy to handling those pesky customs inquiries that happen as a result of the increased enforcement that we've all been feeling. Welcome to Simply Trade, Cindy's version, where I take a Taylor Swift song and base an international trade update on it. Today's song is Change. I'll get to that in a moment. This podcast is brought to you in association with the Global Training Center, and I am excited to talk about what's happened in trade this week. We've had quite a few big developments that have happened on June 29th. Reconciliation entries are going to be accepted in the CAPE filing process by CBP, and that is those underlying reconciliation entries that have been flagged for reconciliation and have not yet had the 09 reconciliation entry filed on it. So still some limitations, but great news for those reconciliation companies. On the CBP front, they also announced entry-level validations have been updated in CAPE, specifically goods. The value chapter 199 has been removed, which is good because there was not great guidance on where to put the duty rate in those 1 through 97 chapter numbers, or whether it was on the trade remedy number and which trade remedy number it was actually supposed to be on. So CBP has just removed that edit check, which should allow a lot of those CAPE filings to go through that have been subject to PSCs or retransmission. So that's good news for everyone and less work. The other one is the former HTS relationship mismatch error code has been broken into 2 errors for greater clarity. Also good news. The first one is invalid HTS for the HTS date errors. And those are mostly for the trade remedies where they were applicable or not applicable. So that's good news. We'll be able to dive into those a little bit more deeply. And also the second one is the HTS relationship mismatch, where those HTS numbers were derived from another code, and that is inaccurate. So that gives customs brokers and importers a little bit more insight into where the issue occurred. CBP has also announced major changes to the informal mail entry, and this was the process that was defined after de minimis was done away with, and the mail environment really needed a temporary type of import process to allow those very low value packages to continue to be processed in the mail environment. The biggest one in that new announcement is that all of those postal services need to use a customs broker. Customs is requiring this to be a customs business, and they're requiring a customs broker to be used. Good news is most of the companies that were doing that actually have or have acquired a customs broker. So minimal changes are expected in that environment. It's still a spreadsheet process, which I find a little odd with all the automation that we have. It's a spreadsheet process, but it will require the customs broker for those mail entries in an informal basis to actually apply the trade remedies, the actual duty rates, and pay the appropriate amount of duty. If you remember, that interim process was based on the IEPA duty rate only and didn't require full classification and full application of the duties. That'll be implemented in about 30 days. I believe the date is July 24th. So if you're importing by mail or you're participating in that, you're likely already involved with the changes that are going to be needed to be made to that process. At an administration level, Secretary Scott Bessent said that the Section 301 investigations underway will likely go back to the same level of duty collection as the former IEPA rates. He was careful to note that he did not know the actual country-specific rates for each of those investigations until that investigation is completed, but that the total amount of duty is expected to equal the IEPA rates that were formerly collected and found to be unlawful and is the basis of the entire CAPE process. And he also noted in a separate address to a different group that supply chains need to be built to withstand shocks withstand pandemics and withstand economic coercion from our trade partners and from those who wish to cause us economic distress. I thought that was a really interesting comment because those supply chains are the cause of a lot of additional costs, and it's very complex and hard to change. And we saw that in the pandemic. We've definitely seen it during these trade remedies, how slight changes causes complete and utter devastation in some supply chain lines, but also creates additional work, additional costs, and additional concerns. Some of that is actually causing manufacturing move to other parts of the world. And as a matter of fact, we have seen reports that it has caused foreign manufacturers and foreign sellers just to find other markets other than the United States. He did go on to clarify further that not every component or part is expected to be produced in the U.S., as that would be unrealistic. So I found that to be really interesting. Kind of related, in a letter to Commerce Secretary, the Treasury Secretary, and the U.S. Trade Representative, some representatives asked about the decline of manufacturing jobs, which is estimated to be about 100,000, as well as construction manufacturing that is also in decline. So this supports the fact that manufacturing is going other places and trade is happening around the United States, which was not the intent of some of the trade remedies. Some of the trade remedies do have basis in the fact that there needs to be protected industries, such as pharmaceuticals, we should have a level of production in the United States to ensure if there is an economic or a pandemic disruption, that we do have proper ability to provide for the citizens of the United States. There's been no word yet on a response to those House representatives that sent that letter to the secretaries. In the USMCA, the review and negotiations continue. Some ag officials in the administration have asked for stability in the review and the resulting agreement. Some House representatives have called for strengthening dispute mechanisms for labor issues that are found in Mexico, and also for understanding the level of pay for the Mexican production that's required in USMCA. But with the deadline of July really close, it's likely to be an automatic renewal for another year. We'll be doing this for another year. And ironically, that is the most stable option at this point, is to actually just continue the USMCA agreement for another year while these negotiations and talks continue on, with input from various stakeholders in the House, in the Senate, in the different agencies that have a stake in ensuring this is moving forward, and also for the trade professionals like us and the companies that are producing and importing both into the United States. So, why did I choose this song, Change? Change really is, about change. The song that Taylor Swift wrote opens with an exhaustion and the weight of fighting uphill battles against something bigger than you. Does that sound familiar if you are a trade professional? It sure does to me. And the song Change is about people deciding to do something different, to take a different approach to something, and really have a different outcome going forward. That call to action for ordinary people really shows up in events like I've been at this week. I've been at the American Association of Exporters and Importers Trade Conference. It's something I've been involved in for decades now. There are panels and outreach. And of course, I've been able to spend time with mentors, good and longtime friends, made new friends in this space, which I think is critical for trade professionals. Because there's only a few of us in the world, it's really important to have that opportunity to make friends so that you can pick up the phone and not give your company secrets, but say, hey, I'm running into this issue. Are you seeing this issue? What are you doing about it? How are you getting this resolved? What options do you have? What companies are you dealing with as service providers to help you move forward with this? So it's really important, I think, to be connected. But also in this environment, I think it's really important to have a coordinated voice in Washington, D.C. not just for legislative issues, because we went to the Hill. Some of us met with Senate Finance and House Ways and Means. We talked about the issues that are important to the members of AAEI and how trade is important overall to the economy. But the big change, which I've done this for years with many different trade associations, and I always find it rewarding. And I would recommend, if you are not involved with a trade association that has some sort of government affairs or legislative outreach, get involved in one, because it is very eye-opening. And it also gives you the sense of pride in your country, that you are somehow a little piece of that cog that actually has, helps the government run. But as I've talked in the past, this is really an unprecedented time in trade and overall in the country, but specifically in trade, where before decisions were made collectively across the government. So there was an idea, the administration had an idea. They reached out to the agencies and said, hey, how is this going to impact you? How is this going to impact your stakeholders? What do I need to know? How long is this going to take for you to implement this? What tools do you need? How costly is this going to be? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you have other ideas? Do you have input into this? And there's a whole process built within the government to have that information flow down to the agencies and collect that feedback up back to the administration. And part of that process is the agencies reaching out to stakeholders, reaching out to trade members, reaching out to customs brokers and importers, and reaching out to their legal partners saying, what do you think? Give me your input. Let me know how this is going to impact you. And that has gone away in this administration. That decision-making has been consolidated in a small group of individuals at the secretary level that most companies and most individuals do not have access to. So it's really important that you understand that and ensure that moving forward, you know this. Before, what would happen is we would go to the Hill, we would have conversations, they would go back to the administration, they would go back to the agencies and say, hey, I'm hearing from my constituents that this is adversely impacting them. What can you tell me about this? Can you inform me so that I can determine, do I need to change a law? Do I need to take some action? Do I need to use the weight of my office to make some inquiries on behalf of my constituents? I was talking with a friend who is a former Assistant Secretary of DHS of Legislative Affairs about how times have significantly changed, and that you need not just those relationships on the Hill, but you also need to establish relationships within the administration and within the agencies themselves so that you can have a discrete conversation. Because that decision-making is actually consolidated at the administration level, those individuals in the agencies feel somewhat constrained to be able to even communicate with the trade, to be able to outline the issues, and to have that normal dialogue, that ebb and flow of conversation that makes everything run a little bit more smoothly and allows the agency to meet their mission of protecting the United States and ensuring there's lawful trade and lawful travel in and out of the United States. But it allows them to do it more efficiently for the citizens of the United States in an economic fashion. So my advice to all of you in the trade arena is to engage in, if you have government affairs functions within your company, make sure you're connected to them. Make sure you are feeding that information into them so that they know. They may not understand the issue, but if they're having conversations with the administration, with the White House, on the Hill, or within an agency, they'll remember something. Oh yeah, I know something about this. And they'll come back to you and ask you for more information. Those legislative affairs individuals have had to establish relationships outside of the Hill. They have to have relationships with the administration, with the different agencies. And you may have that relationship with the agency that they need to draw on. And if you don't have that internally, get engaged in a trade association like AAEI to make sure that you have that representation and you have that reach into the administration. Or hire a lobbyist, hire a firm that actually does that on a day in and day out basis, and really work with somebody who can affect the change that Taylor Swift talked about in her song. I hope you all have a good week. We'll talk to you next week.